Why X pretended to love me while stealing my business ideas, so I built my own empire. And now she's trying to crawl back in. I'm a 29-year-old guy. And I thought I'd met the woman who believed in my dreams as much as I did. For years. I'd been stuck in a loop of dead-end jobs, tech support shifts, underpaid freelance gigs, and startup interviews that never led anywhere. But through all that noise, I had one thing that kept me going. A project. My dream. I'd been developing an idea for a tech platform that could help small businesses automate their digital marketing without hiring agencies. It wasn't perfect yet, but I believed in it the way some people believe in religion. Then Sophie came into my life. She was everything I wasn't: charismatic, confident, and a marketing student with a way of making people feel seen. I met her at a mutual friend's networking event. She listened to me talk about my idea for nearly an hour, eyes wide like I'd just explained the next big revolution. I remember her saying, "You're sitting on gold. You just don't know how to sell it yet." Those words stuck with me. Soon we were inseparable. We'd stay up until 2 a.m. brainstorming ideas, her sketching out ad concepts while I coded quietly beside her. She'd bring coffee, play soft music, and say things like, "You and I are going to build something amazing." I felt seen for the first time, not just as another struggling developer, but as someone with potential. She encouraged me to quit my boring job and focus full-time on my startup. I did, thinking love and ambition were enough to carry us both. When she called me her partner in business and in life, I believed her completely. Looking back, I didn't realize I was feeding my dream to someone who'd turn it into her meal ticket. Sophie and I fell into a rhythm that felt like something out of a movie. She'd come over with her laptop and a cup of caramel coffee, toss her hair into a bun, and ask, "Okay, genius, what are we tackling tonight?" Her enthusiasm was magnetic. She made every idea sound world-changing. We'd brainstorm in my cramped apartment, sticky notes plastered across the walls. The hum of my old computer blending with her laughter. She started helping me refine everything: branding, marketing angles, even investor language. "You're the brain," she'd say. "I'll make sure the world sees it." When I doubted myself, she'd squeeze my hand and whisper, "You've got this, babe. You're not just building an app, you're building a future." I didn't realize how much those words fueled me. I began opening up my files to her pitch decks, prototypes, contact lists. It felt natural. She was my partner, after all. We even talked about equity once, joking that we'd split everything 50-50ths when it took off. "It's us against the world," she said one night, lying on my couch with her head on my lap. And I believed her. But there were moments, small ones, when her questions made me pause. She'd ask, "If someone else wanted to buy in, would you ever give up control? Or what if someone launched this before you?" I'd laugh them off, assuming she was just curious. She wanted every password, every update, every version of every file. "Just in case your laptop crashes," she said with a playful smile. I didn't think twice. Looking back now, I realized that was the beginning, the quiet, subtle moment when my dream stopped belonging entirely to me. Things started to shift so gradually that I almost didn't notice. Sophie became distracted. The woman who once spent hours sketching marketing ideas on napkins now brushed off my updates with half-hearted, "That's great," babe replies while scrolling through her phone. She started attending networking events without me, saying it was better if one of us mingled while the other focused on development. I wanted to trust her, but something in her tone felt rehearsed. One night, found a flyer in her bag for a tech investor mixer. My stomach sank. She hadn't mentioned it, even though I'd been dying for a chance to connect with investors. When I asked, she laughed it off. "Relax. I just went for a friend. You hate those pretentious people, remember?" She kissed me afterward, like she always did, when she wanted to end a conversation. Still, the unease lingered. I started noticing her guarding her phone, turning it face down, silencing notifications mid-conversation. Once, I caught a glimpse of a text preview from someone saved as C. Investor. She snatched the phone away before I could even blink. "Don't be paranoid," she snapped, her voice sharp in a way I'd never heard before. I told myself I was overthinking it. I mean, Sophie had been there from the start. She wouldn't betray me. But one night, While updating my shared drive, I noticed a missing folder, the one with my early prototypes and business model notes. I stared at the empty space where it should have been, my cursor hovering over the void. Maybe it was a sync issue, I thought. Maybe she'd just reorganized it. But deep down, a cold knot of dread formed in my chest. I tried to ignore as I told myself everything was fine. It all came crashing down one ordinary Tuesday morning. I was scrolling through my feed half awake when I saw a post from a startup showcase event. The headline made my heart stop. Young entrepreneur Sophie Martin presents revolutionary marketing automation concept. My exact prototype. Even the tagline I'd written months ago, word for word. I remember clicking the video in disbelief. There she was, standing on stage in a sleek blazer, confidently explaining my idea like it was hers. Our mission, she said, her voice calm and professional, is to empower small businesses to manage their marketing independently. Our mission. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. I called her immediately. She didn't answer. I called again. Then she texted, "Can we talk later?" "I'm busy." That's when anger replaced shock. I drove to her apartment, heart pounding so hard it felt like static in my ears. When she opened the door, her expression was cold, not guilty. Not afraid, just calculated. "Sophie," I said, my voice trembling, "you used my project. You stole everything." She crossed her arms. "Our project. You wouldn't have gotten anywhere with it. You don't know how to pitch, how to sell. I'm just executing what we built together." "No," I whispered. "You're executing me out of it." She rolled her eyes, walking past me. "You're too emotional. Investors want leaders, not dreamers. You should thank me, at least the idea's alive now." I stood there in silence, my whole world tilting sideways. Everything, every sleepless night, every note, every dream, suddenly felt meaningless. That night I packed up my workspace. I deleted the shared folders, shut down my computer, and sat in the dark. The woman I loved had gutted my heart and stolen my future in one clean cut. And she didn't even flinch. The weeks that followed felt like free fall. I'd wake up, stare at the ceiling, and wonder if any of it had been real. The love, the partnership, the future we'd talked about. My phone buzzed constantly with people congratulating her for the launch. I couldn't escape it. Every headline, every tag felt like a knife twisting deeper. Sophie's startup. My startup was everywhere. Investors praised her as a visionary. Friends I'd introduced her to started working with her, and when I reached out to explain, they brushed me off. "Man, it's just business," one said. "You should have protected your idea, as if betrayal could be reduced to a legal oversight." I ran out of savings fast. Rent, bills, debt, all of it piled up while she lived the life we used to dream about. I tried to apply for jobs again, but every interview felt hollow. "Tell us about your last project," they'd ask. I'd choke every time. That project wasn't mine anymore. Nights were the worst. I'd sit in the dark with my laptop open to her website, staring at my stolen work dressed in glossy design. I could practically hear her voice in every marketing line. She'd taken everything. I started doubting myself completely. Maybe I really wasn't good enough to make it work on my own. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was too emotional, too naive, small for the world I wanted to enter. I deleted my files, shut down my social accounts, and disappeared for a while. It wasn't even anger anymore, just emptiness. I had no idea who I was without the dream I'd built, but sometimes, when I couldn't sleep, I'd whisper to myself she might have stolen my idea. But not in my mind at that point, though. I didn't believe it. Not yet. Months passed in a fog of silence and humiliation. I stopped checking social media, stopped going out, stopped talking to anyone who reminded me of her. My apartment felt smaller each day, filled with stale air and regret. I'd spend hours just staring at my old notebooks, the ones filled with sketches of my original prototype. Each page felt like a reminder of how foolish I'd been to trust her. Then, one evening, I got an email. The subject line read, your early concept pitch. I almost deleted it, assuming it was spam. But the sender's name stopped me. An investor I'd met years ago during a networking event. Sophie had convinced me to skip. He wrote, "Hey, I stumbled across your old notes from our chat. I always thought your approach was smarter than what others are doing right now. If you ever decide to revisit it, reach out." For the first time in months, something inside me sparked. I reread that email over and over. My hands shook, not with anger this time, but energy. I realized the idea was still mine at its core. She might have taken my files, but she couldn't replicate my understanding of how it worked. She could mimic the form, not the soul. That night I reopened my old code files. Dusty, outdated, barely functional, but familiar. I made coffee, pulled an all-nighter, and felt the rhythm return. Every click, every line of code reminded me who I was before her. I didn't have the resources or the confidence I once did, but I had something better: clarity. When I looked at the sunrise bleeding through my blinds, I muttered to myself, "She stole my idea, but she never steal my fire." And for the first time in a long while, I actually believed it. Rebuilding wasn't cinematic. It was quiet, grueling, and lonely. I worked out of coffee shops with free Wi-Fi, using an old laptop that overheated every few hours. My savings were gone, so I picked up freelance gigs, fixing websites, debugging code, whatever paid enough to keep me fed. Every night, after finishing other people's work, I'd return to my own, refining the concept she'd stolen and reshaping it into something even better. There was no Sophie this time. No cheerleader. No partner. It's just me, my screen, and the faint hum of espresso machines in the background. But I found a strange peace in that solitude. No one could take anything from me if I didn't hand it over. One afternoon, I met a guy named Marcus, a designer who freelanced at the same cafe. He noticed my sketches and asked what I was working on. I told him the truth, the whole story. Instead of laughing, he said, "Damn, man, that's brutal. But if you've still got the blueprint in your head, you've got power." That line hit me hard. Marcus offered to help. No contracts, no strings, just collaboration. We built piece by piece, learning from every mistake I'd made before. I coded during nights, he designed during mornings. Slowly, my version began to take shape. Meanwhile, I kept tabs on Sophie's company. Her product was losing traction. Customers complained about bugs, poor support, false promises. She had the spotlight, but no backbone to sustain it. It was poetic watching her empire wobble while mine was being quietly reborn from the ashes. For months, I said nothing. I just kept building, waiting. Because this time, I didn't want to compete with her. I wanted to outlast her. It was around the 1-year mark when she reached out. I remember the email vividly, subject line, "Can we talk?" My stomach twisted the moment I saw her name. Sophie. The woman who'd gutted my dream now wanted to talk. I didn't reply right away, but curiosity gnawed at me. Her company had been struggling publicly. Rumors of investor withdrawals, customer refunds, chaos behind the scenes. So after a few days, I answered with a neutral, "Sure. What's this about?" She replied within minutes, "I just want to clear the air. Maybe we could help each other again." When we met, she looked different. Tired, thinner, her confidence dimmed. Gone was the power-dressed CEO who'd stolen the spotlight. She smiled awkwardly, sitting across from me at a cafe. "You look good," she said softly. "I've missed working with you." I leaned back. "Working with me or taking from me?" Her smile faltered. "I made mistakes, okay? I didn't mean for it to go that far. I thought we were building something together." I wanted to laugh, but the bitterness in my chest was too heavy. "Together. You erased my name from everything." She sighed, rubbing her temples. "Look, things have gone south. Investors are pulling out. Maybe we can merge our projects. Yours still has potential, I know it." That's when it clicked. She didn't want closure. She wanted leverage. Her empire was collapsing, and she was reaching for the one person she'd underestimated. I kept my face neutral. "Maybe," I said slowly. "We can talk more soon." She looked relieved, almost hopeful. But as I watched her walk away, I already knew this wasn't reconciliation. It was reconnaissance. And this time, I wasn't going to be her stepping stone. I was going to be her lesson. Over the next few weeks, I played along. Sophie thought I was considering her offer, but in truth, I was studying her every move. She sent me her new proposals, pitch decks, even back-end screenshots. Desperate attempts to rebuild trust. Each file told me the same story. Her company was bleeding out. Bugs everywhere, user complaints skyrocketing, investor confidence shattered. The foundation she stole from me was crumbling. Meanwhile, my own project, rebuilt from scratch and renamed, was finally ready. I'd spent months refining every line of code, testing every feature, ensuring it worked flawlessly. Marcus and I had already lined up small business clients who loved what we were building. But now, I had an opportunity not just to rise, but to reclaim. I filed for a patent on my original framework, the one I'd documented years before she'd ever touched it. Then I trademarked my new brand name. The paperwork felt like armor. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just reacting. I was defending what was rightfully mine. A month later, I launched. My platform went live quietly, but word spread fast. People compared it to Sophie's software and noticed immediately how much better mine was. "This feels like what hers was supposed to be," one review said. "I didn't need to name her. The internet did it for me. She tried to fight back online, calling me vindictive, accusing me of copying her idea. But when screenshots of my old notes, timestamps, and prototypes surfaced, the narrative flipped. Investors pulled out of her company within days, and as I watched her public image implode, I felt calm, not triumphant, not gloating, just still. She'd spent years trying to erase me from my own story. Now the world was reminding her, whose name was written on the first page. She showed up at my office on a Friday afternoon. I'd just wrapped a meeting when my assistant buzzed me, her voice uneasy. "There's a woman here. Says her name is Sophie. Should I?" I hesitated, then said, "Send her in." The door opened, and there she was, not the confident, sharp-edged entrepreneur I remembered, but someone smaller, fragile. Her makeup couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the silence thick with history. "You look different," she said quietly, scanning the minimalist space, the subtle signs of success she used to dream about. "You did it, huh?" I leaned back in my chair. "I did." She sat down across from me, clutching her purse like a lifeline. "I didn't come here to fight," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I came to apologize. I was stupid. I thought I could handle it all, the investors, the pressure. I told myself I did it for us, but maybe I just didn't want to admit you were better at it than me." The silence stretched until she finally looked up, her eyes glassy. "We were good together once, weren't we? Maybe we could be again. You've built something incredible, and She paused, forcing a smile. "I can help make it bigger." I almost laughed. "You mean like before?" "When you helped me out of my own idea," her expression crumpled. "I messed up, okay? I lost everything. You're the only one who understands what it took to get here." Stood up steady and cold. "No, Sophie, you don't understand. You taught me what it costs to trust the wrong person. And I paid that price in full." She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "Love built on lies," I said softly, "doesn't deserve a sequel." Her eyes glistened. But I turned away before the first tear fell. In the weeks after that confrontation, the silence was almost cleansing. No more messages, no lingering shadows, no echoes of her voice in my head. For the first time in years, my mind wasn't split between pain and purpose. It was just clear. My company started to grow faster than I'd imagined. The product gained traction with small businesses that had been burned by empty promises from others. They appreciated the honesty, the functionality, the human side I built into every feature. It wasn't just software anymore. It was proof that integrity could win in a world obsessed with shortcuts. I assembled a small team, people I trusted, People like Marcus, who'd seen me at my lowest and still believed. Every morning, our office buzzed with the energy I used to dream about, whiteboards covered in ideas, coffee cups everywhere, late-night coding marathons filled with laughter instead of manipulation. Sometimes I'd catch myself smiling, not because I'd beaten Sophie, but because I had rebuilt what she tried to destroy on my own terms. There was something profoundly satisfying about that. She had investors, PR campaigns, and big stages. But I had authenticity, and people noticed. One morning, an article popped up in a major publication. The quiet rise of a founder who redefined startup loyalty. The photo was me, standing in front of our office logo. I remember staring at the headline, barely breathing. Sophie had once called me too emotional to lead. Now, emotion was my fuel. Empathy, grit, patience. Everything she saw as weakness had become my strength. That night, as I signed our biggest partnership deal yet, I looked at my signature at the bottom of the contract, my name. Alone, unsure. She didn't just steal my idea. She helped forge the version of me strong enough to reclaim it. And this time, no one could take it away. Months later, I heard through mutual circles that Sophie had filed for bankruptcy. Her startup was gone, stripped down to unpaid invoices and lawsuits from investors, who claimed she'd misrepresented the technology. A part of me thought I'd feel triumphant, but I didn't. What I felt instead was peace, a kind of quiet clarity that success doesn't come from revenge. It comes from endurance. I didn't post about it or gloat online. I just kept working. My company was thriving, my team was growing, and for the first time in years, I woke up every morning with purpose instead of resentment. Sometimes late at night, I'd think about how everything might have gone differently if I'd never met her. But then I'd realize I might never have found this version of myself. One evening, I was invited to speak at a startup conference. Standing under the bright lights, I talked about failure, betrayal, not as cautionary tales, but as necessary catalysts. I didn't mention her name, but people knew. When I said, sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what broke you, it's outlasting it. The entire room went silent. After the talk, a young entrepreneur came up to me and said, I almost gave up after someone stole my idea. Hearing you makes me want to try again. I smiled and told him the same thing I once had to tell myself. Your dream is only dead when you stop fighting for it. Back home that night, I closed my laptop and looked around the office, my name on the door, my team laughing in the next room. The faint hum of computers running late into the evening. Sophie had built her empire on deceit, and it collapsed. I built mine on truth, and it endured. And that, I realized, was the ending I never knew I needed.